What would you do if, in the middle of a deserted road, the only person who can save your life is yourself? Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and stay until the end, because what you're about to hear is a story that will make you feel the heartbeat of every kilometer traveled. My name is Lucía Hernandez, and I've been a delivery driver for more than 10 years. I deliver whatever is needed: packages, medicine, tools, food, everything people need to keep going. My motorcycle and my small truck are my two best friends, but that morning I decided to take the truck, because the load was special. On the seat beside me was a box with medical supplies that had to reach the regional hospital before noon. It wasn't the first time I had made that trip, but it was the first time I did it with the feeling that something wasn't right. Maybe it was the way the supervisor told me, "Be very careful on that route," or maybe it was the silence of my coworkers, who usually always joked around when someone headed out on the road. I don't know, but something in the air felt heavier. The sun wasn't even high yet, and it was already beating down like lead on the windshield. Outside, the landscape was the same as always. Solitary cacti, distant hills that looked like motionless shadows, and a narrow road stretching like a gray vein through the desert. It was a beautiful place, yes, but also treacherous. I took a deep breath, turned on the radio to listen to other delivery drivers on the frequency, and told myself, "It's just one more trip, Lucía, one more and the debt will be paid off." Because that delivery, in particular, meant much more than money. It was the final piece to settle what I owed for my mother's treatment, after months of her recovering from a complicated surgery. With every kilometer I drove, I repeated the same promise in my head: "This is for her, nothing will stop me." But what I didn't know was that someone was already waiting for me up ahead. The engine roared with its usual familiarity, but I couldn't shake that feeling in my chest. The road was far too empty, even for that hour. Normally, by that point on the route, it was common to come across a heavy truck, a farmer's pickup, or at least a couple of private cars. But that day, a nothing. Just me, the desert, and a silence seeping in through the windows as if it wanted to crush me. I gripped the wheel tighter. My dad always told me that the road speaks, but you have to know how to listen. And that day, what I heard was distrust. I turned the radio back on, searching for a friendly voice. A couple bursts of static and then silence. I adjusted the antenna, tried again, nothing. It was as if the air itself had swallowed the signals. In the distance, I saw something that made me frown: fresh tire tracks on the shoulder. It wasn't unusual for someone to stop, but these marks didn't look like they were from just one vehicle, but from several. They crossed over each other, forming a messy pattern, as if they had been waiting or hiding. I swallowed hard. My instinct told me to slow down, to observe more carefully. And so I did. I glanced at the side mirrors. Nothing behind. I checked the horizon, only rocks and dust. But then I saw it. Right by the curve up ahead, a glint. Brief, almost imperceptible. Like sunlight reflecting off a mirror or glass. It wasn't supposed to be there. My pulse quickened. I tried to calm myself, thinking it could be anything: a discarded bottle, a piece of rusty metal, even a can someone had thrown away. But deep down I knew it wasn't. That reflection was too sharp, too deliberate. It wasn't the first time I'd heard stories of delivery drivers being ambushed on back roads. Most stayed as rumors, exaggerated anecdotes passed around at gas stations. But now those stories seemed about to come alive in front of me. I took a deep breath and remembered my mother in bed, with that weak smile trying to hide her pain. I couldn't afford to stop, I couldn't turn back. This trip meant everything. So I kept a steady pace. The tires kept rolling, and the roar of the engine accompanied me like a drum marking every second. The sun was beating down, the desert seemed to hold its breath, and I knew that something, or someone, was waiting for me at the end of that curve. The curve came faster than I expected. I turned the wheel firmly, but as soon as I straightened the truck, I saw it. An old sand-colored pickup was blocking the road. The body was rusty, the paint peeling, and the front tires misaligned, as if it had nearly died 1,000 times but was still working for something more sinister. My heart pounded in my chest. I pressed the brake gently so as not to lose control, but the truck slowed just enough for 3 men to emerge from the rocks. Their faces were covered with bandanas and low caps. One held a shotgun, another a gleaming machete that flashed under the sun, and the third carried a chain wrapped around his arm. They moved with the confidence of men who had done this before. The one with the shotgun raised his hand, ordering me to stop completely. "Get out of the truck!" he shouted in a harsh voice. My breathing quickened. My first reaction was to look around, searching for any escape, but the road was blocked by the pickup, and behind me was only the tight curve. Trying to reverse at that speed was almost suicide. The man with the machete stepped forward and struck the blade against the door of my vehicle, as if to remind me I was at his mercy. "Come on, woman. Get out now." My mind was racing. I remembered every story I had heard, every warning from my colleagues. If they stop you, you lose everything. But stopping wasn't an option. With trembling hands, I gripped the steering wheel tightly. My father always taught me that the road is like life. If you're afraid, you lose control. And I couldn't afford to lose it now. The man with the shotgun came closer, aiming directly at the windshield. I could see his dark eyes through the bandana, cold, calculating. In that instant, everything inside me screamed just one thing: run. I shifted gears, pressed the accelerator, and the roar of the engine shattered the silence like thunder. The truck lunged forward, straight toward the pickup blocking the road. The men shouted, surprised. The one with the machete staggered back in a rush, and the one with the shotgun barely managed to leap aside. The metallic crash thundered as my bumper slammed against the back of the enemy pickup. The vehicle shook, but not enough to move. The man with the chain struck my window. The glass rattled but didn't break. I pressed the accelerator harder, determined to break through at any cost. The truck roared like a wounded beast, and I, with my heart pounding wildly, knew that at that moment my life depended on what I did in the next few seconds. The impact resonated through my bones, as if I had collided with the metal myself. The steering wheel vibrated in my hands, and the air filled with dust and the smell of burning rubber. The old pickup held up to the first hit, but mine was built for endurance too. I couldn't stop now. I pressed the accelerator with all my strength. The truck roared as if it also knew we were fighting to survive. The tires screeched against the asphalt and pushed with fury. The enemy pickup shook again, sliding a few inches to the side. But the men didn't stand idly by. The one with the chain lunged at the passenger door, striking it furiously. Each blow rang like a metallic thunderclap, reminding me how close I was to danger. The one with the machete, in an act of pure desperation, climbed onto the side step and tried to reach the window. I could see his eyes glinting with greed and rage through the glass. "Stop or we'll kill you right here," he shouted. My body trembled, but my resolve was firm. I wasn't going to stop. I wasn't going to give up. I clenched my teeth, jerked the wheel sharply, and the truck swerved. The man with the machete lost his balance and fell to the ground with a cry swallowed by the roar of the engine. I seized that moment to ram the blocking pickup again. This time, the crunch of metal was deeper, more final. The enemy vehicle gave way, sliding toward the ditch. The road was almost clear. Almost. A gunshot split the air. The rear window exploded into 1,000 shards, and a bullet whizzed past, just inches from my ear. The man with the shotgun had reacted. I felt my heart leap into my throat. If he hit me with the next shot, it would all end there. I ducked instinctively while keeping the wheel steady. Another shot rang out, ricocheting off the back of the truck. The smell of gunpowder mixed with the hot desert air, a reminder that I was 1 second away from losing everything. But the road ahead opened like a promise. I had only one chance to escape. I slammed the accelerator to the floor. The engine roared with all its might, the tires spat dust and gravel, and the truck leapt forward like an animal freed from its chains. I sped through the newly opened gap and left the enemy pickup behind, swaying in the ditch. The men's shouts faded, mingling with the echo of gunfire. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I couldn't afford to. Every second counted. As I raced down that lonely road, with shards of glass glittering like broken diamonds on the back seat, one thought repeated itself over and over. This isn't over. They're going to chase me. The engine roared like never before, but even that sound couldn't drown out the frantic pounding of my heart. The truck tore furiously across the asphalt, The steering wheel vibrated under my hands, and broken glass fell in tiny splinters onto the seat and floor. For a moment, I thought I had made it. The road stretched wide before me, and the desert, in its vastness, seemed to keep silent like an accomplice. But then I heard it. An engine. Not mine. Another. I glanced at the side mirror, and there it was. The sand-colored pickup had managed to climb out of the ditch and was now coming after me. At its side, a cloud of dust rose like a warning in the air. The men shouted something I couldn't make out, but I didn't need words to understand. They weren't going to let me escape. My throat went dry. I gripped the wheel tighter and calculated my options. No gas stations, no checkpoints, nothing for miles around. Just me, them, and a road that seemed endless. The pickup sped up, and within seconds it was close enough for me to see the metallic glint of the machete raised like a trophy. The man with the shotgun leaned out the window, preparing another shot. "No, no, no," I muttered through my teeth. I jerked the wheel, and the truck swerved just enough to dodge the first bullet. The projectile struck the ground, throwing sparks against the asphalt. Every second was a heartbeat between life and death. I thought about slamming the brakes, letting them overtake me, and then trying something. But that idea vanished as quickly as it appeared. With the fury they carried, if they caught me, there would be no second chance. The only way was forward. The road narrowed, bordered by mounds of rock and giant cacti standing like motionless sentinels. It was a dangerous stretch, with sharp curves that could become a deadly trap if I wasn't careful, but it was also my only advantage. I knew those routes, they didn't. The pickup drew closer and closer. I could see the driver biting his lips in pure rage, trying to pin me against the rock. I felt the side of my truck scrape against theirs. The metal screeched, a sharp sound that pierced me to the bone. It was as if the entire desert was holding its breath, waiting to see who would fall first. And in that instant I knew, if I wanted to survive, I had to risk everything. The engine panted with me, as if my truck and I shared the same pulse. Every curve was a challenge and every straightaway, an opportunity. Behind me, the enemy pickup kept roaring in fury, its tires spitting dust and stones as if they were flames. I knew those roads. I had traveled every stretch of that route on my deliveries, through rain, under the sun, at dawn and at night. I knew where the lanes narrowed, where hidden potholes lurked, and where the asphalt crumbled at the edge of a cliff. They were only improvising. And that was my advantage. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the trembling in my hands. I remembered my mother, her soft voice when I was a child. "No matter how big the fear is, Lucía, what matters is learning how to handle it." Those words echoed like a beacon in the midst of that chaos. The pickup suddenly accelerated and rammed my side again. The man with the machete leaned out once more, the blade glinting in the sun, ready to strike the window. I felt his hungry gaze fixed on me. Then, I did what no one would expect. I released the accelerator for a second. The truck slowed abruptly, and the pickup surged past me by inertia. I could see the driver's surprised face when suddenly he was the one in front. Without giving them time to react, I turned the wheel with precision and rammed one of their sides. The hit threw them off balance. The pickup swerved, its tires kicking up a cloud of dust, and for an instant it seemed they would lose control. "Come on! Come on!" I shouted, as if my truck could hear me. The enemy vehicle regained its balance, but I had already gained a few valuable meters. Not enough to escape, but enough to prepare the next move. In the distance, I recognized a dangerous area, a stretch of worn asphalt beside a ravine. Many truckers avoided that part because one mistake meant plunging dozens of meters. I had driven through there dozens of times. I knew exactly where to turn, how to brake, how to align the tires. They didn't. The idea flashed through my mind like lightning. If I could lead them to that spot, the road itself would take care of the rest. The problem was simple. Would I have the courage to gamble my life on such a dangerous bet? I looked in the rear-view mirror. The three men were shouting, their faces twisted with rage. The one with the shotgun leaned out the window, searching for the perfect angle to shoot. Fear burned in my chest, but the love for my mother was stronger. I gripped the wheel with both hands, fixed my gaze on the horizon, and whispered, If this road has a memory, today I want it to remember that I didn't give up. And I slammed my foot on the accelerator. The horizon trembled under the sun, and there, outlined against the sky, appeared the stretch I had been waiting for. A narrow strip of asphalt, worn by time, that bordered a deep ravine. Any mistake there was unforgiving. I felt the air in the cabin grow heavier. My truck vibrated beneath my feet, as if it too knew we were about to face the most dangerous part of the journey. The enemy pickup soon caught up with me again. Its engine roared behind me, a constant threat breathing down my neck. The men shouted, cheering every shot that ricocheted off my truck's body, every blow that managed to scrape at my endurance. But what they didn't know was that I had already chosen the battlefield. "Come on, Lucía, focus," I muttered through clenched teeth, gripping the wheel. As I reached the start of the ravine, I slowed just enough to make them think they had me cornered. The pickup driver accelerated furiously and in seconds pulled up alongside me, trying to cut me off. The man with the machete raised the blade again, this time with a twisted smile on his lips. The one with the shotgun leaned halfway out the window, aiming straight at my cab. This was the moment. I jerked the wheel sharply to the left, as if trying to ram them off the road. The pickup reacted instinctively, swerving to avoid a head-on collision with me. And right then, when they were too close to the edge of the ravine, I slammed the brakes with all my strength. The seatbelt dug into my chest. The roar of the tires shredded the desert silence. My truck came to a dead stop, and the enemy pickup, carried by its own momentum, shot forward uncontrollably. I saw it all in slow motion, the front wheels losing contact with the asphalt, the men's faces twisted with panic, the screams mixing with the screech of the bodywork. The pickup tilted dangerously toward the void. The driver tried to maneuver, but it was already too late. With one last metallic crunch, the vehicle plunged over the edge of the ravine, raising a cloud of dust that vanished into the abyss. Silence returned, heavy, absolute. I sat frozen, my hands still locked on the wheel, my eyes fixed on the void. I could hardly believe it. I had won, at least for now. I took a deep breath, my chest burning, and let out a nervous laugh that quickly mixed with tears. Not of joy, but of pure relief. But as I got back on the road, with the engine still vibrating beneath my feet, a thought cut through me like a cold knife. What if it wasn't just them? The silence of the desert was deceptive. As my truck moved forward slowly, still trembling from the effort of the escape, I felt that something didn't add up. My breathing was still ragged, my heart pounding like a drum, but my instinct screamed that I couldn't let my guard down. I pressed my lips together and checked the rearview mirror again and again. The abyss had swallowed my pursuers, or at least some of them, because right then I saw it. A cloud of dust in the distance, not at the bottom of the ravine, but on the horizon behind me. Someone else was coming down the road. And by the speed at which they approached, it wasn't just any traveler. "No, it can't be," I whispered, gripping the wheel tighter. A second vehicle. A newer, dark-colored truck with tinted windows emerged from afar. It advanced at full speed, like a predator that smells blood. I realized instantly that it hadn't just been three men improvising an ambush. They were part of something bigger. Maybe an organized gang watching the routes, working in groups. The first pickup had only been the trap. This was the real hunt. My hands were sweating. The road narrowed again, but I no longer had the element of surprise. They knew I was escaping, and they were coming prepared. The dark truck sped up until it was just a few meters behind me. I could feel the vibration of its engine closing in. And then, as if to make it clear that this wasn't a common robbery, one of the rear windows rolled down. An arm came out holding a rifle. The shot boomed like thunder. My windshield cracked into a spiderweb threatening to collapse. Instinctively, I ducked, struggling to keep control. The vehicle bounced over every bump, the glass creaked, and my mind screamed just one thing. I have to survive, I can't fall here. The road stretched ahead, but it was no longer an escape route. It was a battlefield. And I, with my knuckles white from gripping the wheel so tightly, knew that the worst was only just beginning. The windshield groaned with every vibration of the engine, as if it might shatter into 1,000 pieces at any moment. The gunfire kept echoing behind me, each shot closer, each one a reminder that the road wasn't going to give me a break. The air inside the cab became unbreathable. My mouth was dry, my eyes burned from staring at the road, and my whole body felt like a taut rope about to snap. The dark truck closed in even more, so close I could see the glint in the eyes of the man holding the rifle. He aimed at me calmly, with the coldness of someone who had done this before. He wasn't improvising. He was a hunter. Another shot. The side window shattered, sending shards that cut my cheek. I felt the sting of warm blood running down my face. The pain was real, sharp, but I ignored it. I couldn't stop. I clenched my teeth and searched my memory desperately. That road. It had to give me a way out. I remembered that a few kilometers ahead there was a narrow turnoff, barely visible, that connected to an old dirt route used by farmers. No one who didn't know the area well would dare to take it, because it was full of ditches and impossible curves. But I knew it, and it was my only chance. The problem was clear. To reach the turnoff, I had to endure at least a couple more kilometers under direct fire. The engine roared, the tires screamed against the asphalt, and my hands, steady though trembling, guided the truck as if we were bound by the same instinct to survive. The gunfire didn't stop. One pierced the side mirror, another tore through the door, and another struck the cargo bed. Each metallic impact reminded me that what I carried wasn't just merchandise. It was medical supplies that could save lives, and my mother's hope. For her, I repeated to myself, as I pushed the accelerator a little harder, though I felt the truck was already at its limit. And then, there it was. The turnoff. Barely a shadow between bushes and rocks, a road invisible to anyone else, but to me it was a hidden escape. Taking that turnoff meant risking overturning on the dirt path. Not taking it meant facing the bullet already aimed at my head. There was no time for doubt. I yanked the wheel violently to the right. The truck jolted hard, the tires screeched as they left the asphalt and bit into the loose earth. A cloud of dust wrapped around us like a shroud. I felt the vehicle skid, but managed to straighten it in time. My heart hammered in my ears, but I had made it onto the old farm road. Now the question was, would the bandits dare follow me there? The answer came quickly. I saw them in the rearview mirror. The dark truck also turned and lunged after me. They weren't going to give up. The truck bucked like a runaway horse. Every ditch, every loose rock rattled my bones. The steering wheel fought against my hands, and the dust thrown up by the tires made it nearly impossible to see more than a few meters ahead. But I knew that route. I knew that if I held out long enough, I could use the terrain to my advantage. The problem was that the bandits had entered too. The roar of their dark truck's engine rumbled behind me like a constant threat. Their tires chewed through the dirt, raising clouds that seemed ready to swallow us both. A shot tore through the dust. It whistled past my ear and lodged in the dashboard, spitting sparks and the smell of burned metal. The echo of the gunshot mixed with the crunch of the dirt road, creating a chaos that rattled my nerves. Focus, Lucía. This isn't the first time you've faced a hard road, I told myself. I remembered deliveries and storms, the times I had to cross flooded towns to bring medicine, the dawns when sleep nearly knocked me down and only my stubbornness kept me awake. All of that had prepared me for this moment. The road narrowed. To the left, a field of cacti. To the right, a rocky slope dropping straight into a dry streambed. There was no room for error. The rifle thundered again. This time, the bullet struck one of my rear tires. I felt the vehicle tilt, losing stability. My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't stop. I couldn't let that blown tire steal my only chance to escape. I clenched my teeth and gripped the wheel tight, controlling every skid as if my life depended on it. Because it did. The dark truck drew closer and closer. I could see the glint of weapons through the dust cloud. The men shouted, exhilarated, sure it was only a matter of seconds before they caught me. But then, through the smoke and flying dirt, a memory surfaced in my mind, an even narrower turnoff, almost hidden, that led to an old wooden bridge. A bridge so unstable that any vehicle too heavy risked collapsing into the streambed. My truck was loaded, yes, but it was lighter than theirs. Maybe, just maybe, that bridge would be my salvation. I took a deep breath, sweat running down my temples, and told myself, It's now or never. I turned the wheel to the left, kicking up an even thicker cloud of dust and stones, and steered the truck toward that forgotten turnoff. In the rearview mirror I saw the bandits hesitate for an instant, but then, like starving hyenas, they turned as well. The hunt continued. Dust swirled around me like a ghost that refused to let go. The truck jolted violently over every rock, and the damaged rear tire made every curve a macabre game with gravity. Then I saw it. The bridge. A skeleton of wood and rusted metal, hanging over the dry streambed. Every plank seemed to scream that it had already borne too much weight in its life. It was a relic forgotten by time, something no one in their right mind would cross at that speed. But I had no other choice. The dark truck was still behind me, relentless. Its engine's roar closed in like a crazed monster, and the gunfire didn't stop. A bullet shattered the left mirror, another grazed my shoulder, leaving a burning sting that made me gasp. "Hold on, Lucía. Just a little more," I repeated to myself, gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. The bridge groaned as my front tires touched it. The sound was so loud it cut through my bones. I could feel the structure trembling beneath my weight, as if it might collapse at any moment. The smell of rotten wood and rust filled the cab. Every second became eternal. I pressed the accelerator, forcing the truck forward without looking back. The bridge shook with every meter, planks splintered under my wheels, and the echo of the creaking screamed at me to get off as fast as possible. Behind me, the roar of the enemy engine grew louder. I looked in the rearview mirror. The dark truck had also entered the bridge. They didn't hesitate. The men shouted, confident they had me trapped, firing non-stop even as the bridge quivered with each blast. But then it happened. The bridge gave way. First a plank, then a side beam. My truck's weight had weakened it, but the real blow came from the enemy vehicle. Bigger, heavier, more brutal. I saw them falter, their rear tires sliding toward the inevitable void. The driver tried to turn the wheel, but the bridge's final groan thundered like the roar of a dying beast. With a deafening crash, part of the structure collapsed, dragging the dark truck into the abyss. The echo of their screams vanished into the bottom of the streambed, swallowed by the cloud of dust and shattered wood. I, just a few meters from the exit, gave one last burst of speed. The truck leapt off the bridge just as another section crumbled behind me. The impact with solid ground shook me to the core, but I was still alive. I stopped a few meters ahead, breathing heavily, my hands still clamped on the wheel. I looked in the rearview mirror. Only ruins of the bridge and dust hanging in the air remained. I had done it. I had crossed. But deep in my chest, as silence fell over the road again, a certainty burned within me. This hadn't been an isolated attack. It was part of something much bigger. The engine stayed on, vibrating beneath my feet like a tired but stubborn heart. Dust still rose behind me, hanging in the air like a reminder of what had just happened. I stayed still for a moment, my hands firm on the wheel and my eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. There was nothing else. No headlights chasing me, no engine roar, no gunfire. Only silence. The kind of silence that weighs. The cut on my cheek burned, and the desert heat mixed with the smell of broken wood, burnt rubber, and gunpowder. My hands trembled, but my breathing slowly began to steady. "You survived, Lucía," I whispered, as if I needed to convince myself. But that word, survive, left a bitter taste. Because it wasn't the first time I had heard about delivery drivers being ambushed on that route. And I had always suspected they weren't just simple robberies. There was too much coordination, too much brutality. And now I had seen it firsthand. I grabbed the radio, even though I knew the signal was weak in that area. I tried my co-worker's frequency. "Does anyone copy?" "This is Lucía." I repeat, "This is Lucía." Static. Only static. I smacked the device in frustration and dropped it on the seat. Sweat ran down my forehead, and an idea began to take shape in my mind. The cargo I was carrying wasn't just anything. It was high-value medical supplies. Equipment, medicine. Things that could fetch a lot of money on the black market. What if those men hadn't attacked me at random? What if someone had told them my route, my schedule, what I was carrying? The thought froze my blood. That meant someone knew exactly where I would be. and that someone, from the inside, could have leaked the information. A traitor. My supervisor's name immediately came to mind. I remembered his vague warning that morning, "Be very careful on that route." His eyes weren't worried, they were complicit. I realized it too late. I gripped the wheel until my hands hurt. I couldn't go back. I couldn't stop. The only option was to reach the hospital, deliver the cargo, complete the mission. But now the journey carried a different weight. It was no longer just about surviving. It was about finding out who had wanted me dead on that road. The desert stretched ahead of me, endless, scorching. And I kept driving, with a certainty burning in my chest that the real battle was only just beginning. The sun was already at its peak, beating down with a fury that seemed intent on burning the asphalt and erasing me from the map. The truck pushed forward with effort, with a damaged tire, shattered windows, and the engine panting like a wounded animal. But it kept going. Just like me. Every kilometer brought me closer to the hospital, but also increased the weight in my chest. The silence on the radio, the perfectly calculated attack, the way my supervisor had looked at me that morning. It all fit together too well. I clenched my teeth. If someone had wanted me dead, they couldn't have planned it alone. There had been precise information: the departure time, the route, even the type of cargo. The bandits didn't know that by chance. The betrayal hurt more than the cut on my face or the pain in my arms from gripping the wheel. Because in this job, the only thing holding you up is trust in your own people. And now that trust was in pieces. The road slowly changed. The dirt gave way to asphalt again. In the distance, the first signs of the city came into view. Traffic started to appear: private cars, old trucks, even a couple of motorcyclists. That urban bustle, which had so often annoyed me, was now a relief. After so many hours of desert and pursuit, just seeing people made me feel less alone. But the danger wasn't over. A white truck appeared in the rearview mirror. No logos, no visible plates. Its behavior put me on alert instantly. It kept the same speed as me, maintaining distance, but without trying to overtake. I swallowed hard. Could it be them again? A third group? My hands sweated on the wheel. I glanced at the mirror every few seconds, searching for any sign. The white truck stayed there, like a shadow stuck to my back. I tried to accelerate, but my vehicle had nothing left to give. The engine groaned with a deep hum, and the damaged tire made every turn a torment. I thought about taking a detour, another route to the hospital, but an instinct stopped me. If that truck really was following me, any strange move would confirm my suspicions. And if it wasn't, maybe I still had a chance to lose them in the traffic. The hospital was less than 30 minutes away. 30 minutes that could become the longest distance of my life. I took a deep breath and repeated the same thing I had told myself that morning. You won't stop me. No one will stop me. The city stretched before me like a mirage made of concrete and noise. After so many hours in the desert, the honking, the street vendors on the corners, and the bustle of cars seemed like another world. But not even there did I feel safe. The white truck stayed behind me, at the same distance, like a hunting dog that never loses sight of its prey. Between the reflections of windshields and the movement of people, I tried to figure out if they were really following me, or if it was my mind, still in shock, playing a cruel trick. I turned onto a main avenue, where the traffic lights controlled the chaos of the traffic. The red forced me to stop. I took a deep breath, my knuckles white on the wheel, as the line of cars piled up around me. To my left, a delivery truck full of sodas. To my right, a crowded minibus. Everything seemed normal, until I saw the reflection in the side mirror. The passenger of the white truck rolled down the window just a few centimeters. The metallic glint that appeared left no doubt. A weapon. My pulse exploded in my ears. I couldn't run. I was trapped at the light, surrounded by cars, with dozens of witnesses. And yet, they didn't seem to care about the consequences. A beep from the light announced the change. Green. I slammed the accelerator with all the strength I had left, pulling ahead between cars that were just starting to move. The white truck did the same, ignoring horns and shouts from the other drivers. The chase was no longer on lonely roads. Now it was happening in broad daylight, in the middle of the city. I took a side avenue, zigzagging between taxis and motorcycles, with the enemy truck stuck to my tail. Urban traffic worked against me, forcing me to brake, swerve, and maneuver with millimeter precision. Every horn, every pedestrian crossing unexpectedly, every sharp turn could mean the end. My heart pounded so hard I felt it would tear through my chest. Suddenly, I saw the blue sign, General Hospital. It was just a few blocks away. The destination so close, but the threat even closer. I had two options: keep going straight to the hospital and risk them opening fire in front of everyone, or try one last maneuver to gain the advantage before I got there. And as the white truck crept closer and closer, a reckless idea formed in my mind. A risky move. One that would only have one chance to work. The blue hospital sign was like a promise of salvation, but also a risk. I couldn't bring the chase directly there. If the men fired, I would endanger everyone. I had to shake them off before I arrived. Traffic grew denser. Honking, shouting, motorcycles weaving between cars. All that chaos that normally irritated me could now become my ally. I took a deep breath, running through the maneuver in my head. I would only have one chance. I waited for the right moment. The traffic light ahead turned red, and a line of cars began to stop. The white truck was right on my heels, confident they had me cornered. I counted 3 seconds. And then I yanked the wheel violently to the right, darting into a narrow alley. The tires screeched, the engine roared, and my truck barely managed to dodge a fruit stand that exploded into pieces, sending oranges and apples rolling across the ground. The alley was narrow, with walls on both sides and barely enough space for a single vehicle. It wasn't meant to be driven at that speed, but I wasn't going to stop. I heard the roar of the enemy engine behind me. They had entered too. I gripped the wheel, my body tense like a spring. The alley had a treacherous exit, a sharp turn that connected back to the main avenue, just a few blocks from the hospital. I knew it. They didn't. I accelerated. The engine roared, the truck bounced against the cobblestones, the side mirrors scraped the walls. The alley felt like a concrete tunnel trying to swallow me alive. And then came the turn. I swerved hard, scraping the wall with the side of my truck. Sparks flew through the air, but I made it through. In the rearview mirror I saw the exact moment the white truck, too big and too fast, couldn't turn in time. Its bumper slammed straight into the wall. The crash boomed like a cannon, and the vehicle got stuck, blocking the way. The men shouted, pounded the dashboard, trying to force the vehicle into reverse, but the space was far too tight. I, gasping, my heart racing wildly, managed to exit the alley and take the avenue again. And there it was. The hospital. The white building rose before me, with people going in and out, unaware of the hell I had just survived. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't let go of the wheel. I had survived. I had made it. The hospital parking lot appeared ahead like an oasis after crossing an endless desert. The truck staggered forward, with the rear tire practically destroyed, the sides battered, and the windows shattered. It was a miracle I had made it that far. I slowed down and entered carefully, the security guards widening their eyes at the state I arrived in. They waved desperately, but I couldn't stop yet. Not until I was sure. I drove up to the unloading area. There I stopped, for the first time in hours, and silence crashed down on me like an unbearable weight. I turned off the engine. The roar ceased, and only then did I realize my whole body was shaking. I opened the door and stepped out. The hospital's cool air hit my face, mixing with the smell of disinfectant and medicine. My cheek was still bleeding, my hands were covered in dust and sweat, and my knees barely held me up. A nurse ran toward me. "Ma'am, you're hurt." "No," I gasped, raising a hand. "First, the cargo." The man looked at me in confusion, but nodded. Another group came out and began unloading the boxes from the truck. I watched them, and a wave of relief washed over me. The supplies were where they needed to be. I had fulfilled my duty. But the relief didn't last long. As I watched the boxes enter the hospital, I felt that stab in my chest again. That ambush hadn't been random. Someone knew exactly what I was carrying and when I was carrying it. And that someone, most likely, was inside the very company I worked for. I looked around. The supervisor hadn't arrived yet, but I knew I would see him soon. Would I be able to confront him? To look him in the eyes and ask if he had sold me out for money stained with blood? The thought twisted my stomach. I leaned against the truck, closed my eyes, and breathed deeply. People passed by me, the nurses unloaded. The hospital continued with its routine as if nothing had happened. But I knew nothing would ever be the same. Not after staring death in the face on those roads. Not after realizing that someone out there wanted me dead. I opened my eyes and promised myself one thing. I would not stay silent. I had survived. I had delivered. But the war was only just beginning. The hum of the hospital corridors enveloped me like a constant murmur. Doctors running, stretchers coming and going, nurses giving quick orders. Everything seemed normal, as if the world hadn't stopped for me on that road. But I was still on alert. I wiped the dried blood from my cheek with the back of my hand and walked toward reception. Sweat still ran down my back, but what weighed on me most was the suspicion. And then I saw him. Standing near the counter, a folder under his arm, was my supervisor. He wore the same spotless shirt as in the morning, the same calculated expression, as if everything were under control. When he saw me, his eyes widened in feigned surprise. "Lucía, what happened to you? But what did they do to the truck?" He rushed toward me, theatrical, as if he didn't know anything. I watched him in silence, studying every movement, every word. I didn't say anything for a few seconds, just looked him in the eyes. That evasive gaze, that excess of feigned concern, it gave him away more than any confession could. "An ambush," I finally answered, my voice hoarse. 2 different groups followed me on the road. They were prepared, too prepared. He swallowed hard. "Barely noticeable. That's terrible. Thank goodness you made it alive. I told you to be careful, but I never imagined, or never wanted to tell me." I cut him off, taking a step closer. His expression shifted for just a second, long enough to confirm my suspicions. Then he regained his composure and raised his hands in a gesture of innocence. "Lucía, you have to understand. I have nothing to do with this." "Oh, really?" I shot back, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Funny how they knew exactly what I was carrying, what time I left, and what route I'd take. Too much of a coincidence, don't you think? His jaw tightened. Sweat beaded on his forehead, even though the hospital's air conditioning was cold. I kept staring at him, the certainty burning inside me. I didn't have proof yet, but I was convinced he had sold the information. And the worst part was, even though I had survived, I knew the story wouldn't end here. "I'm warning you," I whispered. "If you ever put my life at risk again, if you ever touch what's mine again, there won't be a road in this country where you can hide from me." The silence between us was so dense it felt like another wall in the hallway. He smiled faintly, a twisted smile, as if he didn't fear my words. As if he knew the network was much bigger than the 2 of us. And that was what worried me the most. The hospital seemed to swallow the sounds from outside, but my mind was still trapped on the road, in the gunfire, in the groaning of the bridge breaking beneath my wheels. I looked at my supervisor, and though he tried to stay calm, I could smell the fear in his sweat. I wasn't going to get a confession right there. I knew it. But I didn't need words. His silence already said everything. I decided to walk away before I lost control. I went down the hallway to the room where they were unloading the last boxes. There, one of the doctors recognized me. "Are you the delivery driver for the supplies?" he asked, while checking the shipment. I nodded, still breathing hard. "You arrived just in time," he said. "You have no idea the pressure we were under. These medicines. Someone already tried to delay previous deliveries." I froze. "What do you mean, delay?" I asked. The doctor lowered his voice, as if afraid someone might overhear. "In the last few weeks, 3 shipments of medical supplies never arrived. The drivers disappeared. The company was paid in full, but the hospital never received anything. Officially, they say it was robberies. I'm not so sure." A chill ran down my spine. They weren't just petty bandits improvising ambushes. It was a system. A network that stole medical supplies, feeding off the hospital's need and selling to the highest bidder on the black market. And I had almost become just another number on that list. Does anyone else know this? I asked. The doctor looked at me nervously. A few. And not everyone wants to talk. There's fear. A lot of fear. I nodded, clenching my jaw. Now everything made sense. The organized groups, the precision with which they knew my movements, my supervisor's suspicious attitude. This wasn't an isolated robbery. It was an operation with tentacles far longer than I had imagined. I left the unloading area with my head boiling with thoughts. Outside, the sun was already beginning to set, painting the city with golden and orange tones. People went about their routines, unaware of the silent war being waged on the roads. I took a deep breath, but in my chest there was no relief anymore. Only one certainty. I had survived an ambush, yes, but I had just stumbled upon a much bigger monster. And sooner or later, I would have to face it. The sun sank slowly, tinting the sky in reddish hues. I remained leaning against my battered truck, watching how the hospital swallowed the boxes of supplies I had defended with my life. The mission was complete, but my mind could no longer rest. Every gunshot, every curve taken at the limit, every glance from my supervisor came back to me like echoes impossible to silence. And behind all of it, a single truth shone with the clarity of the desert at noon. If I stayed silent, that network would keep claiming victims. I pulled out my portable radio, the only thing still working among the wreckage of the vehicle. I tuned to the delivery driver's frequency and called. "This is Lucía Hernandez. Do you copy?" A few seconds of static, and then a familiar voice answered. It was Ramiro, a veteran of the guild. "Lucía. Rumor had it you didn't make it. Where are you?" "At the hospital," I replied firmly. "I made it. But I need you to listen carefully." I told him what had happened on the road. The two different groups, the chase into the city, the bridge that nearly swallowed me. The silence on the other end of the radio was heavy, until finally Ramiro spoke. "You're not the first, Lucía. Others have fallen before. Some never made it home." My fists clenched in anger. Then enough of keeping quiet. These aren't just simple robberies. It's an organized network. Someone on the inside is feeding them information. And if we keep looking the other way, they're going to hunt us down one by one. Other voices came through the frequency. Truck drivers, motorcycle couriers, trailer operators. Everyone wanted to know more. Everyone had similar stories. Everyone had lost colleagues. "What do you propose?" someone asked. I took a deep breath. The decision was already made. That we stop working alone. That we cover each other. That we expose the ones betraying us. I don't know how far this goes, but I know I'm not going to stay still. Silence returned for an instant, and then the voices erupted with the same tone. Support, anger, promises not to let the network keep growing. I turned off the radio, with a knot in my throat. I wasn't alone. The sky darkened and the city lit up its lights, but inside me something else lit up, the certainty that I had started a war. A war I hadn't sought, but that now belonged to me. Night had fallen over the city. The car lights illuminated the avenues like rivers of fire, and in my reflection against the shattered truck window, I barely recognized the woman who had left that morning. She wasn't the same. Lucía Hernandez, delivery driver, survivor of the road, mother, daughter, and now, something more, a voice willing not to stay silent. Inside the hospital, the supplies were already in the doctor's hands. People who would never know what it had cost to bring them there, but who would save lives with them. That was my victory. Small, perhaps, compared to the monster I had uncovered, but enough to remind me that my fight was worth it. I turned toward my wrecked truck. It had been my shield, my companion, my only ally on the road. I placed a hand on the dented hood and whispered, "Thank you for not letting me go." The sound of footsteps pulled me from my thoughts. It was my supervisor. He walked slowly, with that twisted smile I already knew, as if everything was still under his control. "Lucía," he said, What happened today was terrible, but we can't stop out of fear. The company needs to keep working. I looked him in the eyes, rage contained in every fiber of my being. Of course we're going to keep working, I replied. But not like before. He frowned. What do you mean? I smiled faintly, with the calm that comes after facing death itself. That we're not alone anymore. I turned around and walked toward the exit, letting my words linger in the air. Outside, my guild's radio was still active, full of voices from colleagues willing to unite, to watch each other's backs, to expose what others wanted to keep hidden. I didn't know how big the network was. I didn't know how many more were involved. But I did know one thing. I wasn't going to give up. Because the road has memory. And from that night on, it would have mine too. With the engine off, with wounded hands and my gaze fixed on the horizon, I made a promise. If they ever touch another delivery driver, they won't just face me. They'll face all of us. The roar of a nearby trailer blended with the murmur of the city. And in that sound I found my closure, not as an ending, but as the beginning of a much greater fight.